let's take a hot minute to discuss Sage Steele.
Mm.
All right. Sage Steele is a ESPN sports anchor who is a conservative. She is a conservative. She said some really bizarre things over the years. She was on a podcast, and she, for some bizarre reason, began talking about President Barack Obama's racial identity. I don't know why she felt the need to bring him up. I'm not really sure. But basically, Miss Steele was complaining about having to mark only one race on the census. Now, I don't know if she wants to be the biracial tragic mulatto butterfly. I'm not really sure what the angle of that is. But since 2000, for over 2 decades, you can mark more than one race on the census. But you know how these conservatives are, because they whine about race being focused on so much, but they obsess over race.
This is true.
So she says, she wants to know why she has to mark black. And then for some bizarre reason, and mind you, even if it was just one race, you could still mark whatever you want, on the census, even before 2000. Like, there isn't somebody over your shoulder analyzing what you're marking. You could still do whatever you want. So whatever she thinks she is, that's fine. And I want to also say, I've always said this, she identifies as biracial, which is fine. But I want to be clear, biracial is not a racial identity. It's a racial descriptor. It's not an actual racial identity. When I was younger, I'm 44, nobody used the term biracial. Folks might say mixed. They might say something else, but it's not a racial identity. It's a racial descriptor. Some folks think it is. Some folks think nationalities are races. They're not. They're nationalities. So it's a descriptor of your racial identity, but it's not. There's 5 races according to the census, and there's not one called biracial. But you can mark whatever you want to mark, and you can mark more than one race. Nonetheless, she brings up President Barack Obama, and she brings up his father, who has been dead since 1982. He died in a car crash, Barack Obama Sr., when President Obama was only 21 years old. And she says because his father wasn't around, she questions why President Barack Obama would mark black on the census. Listen to this.
When you fill out your census, I'm like, well, I don't know when the last time I filled out my census was, but if they make you choose a race, she's like, what are you going to put? I go, well, both. She's like, well, you can't. She goes, well, what if Barack Obama chose black and he's biracial? I'm like, well, congratulations to the president. That's his thing. I go, I think that's fascinating considering his black dad was nowhere to be found, but his white mom and grandma raised him. But hey, you do you. I'm going to do me.
So her background, she has a black father and she has an Irish Italian mother. She's 48 years old. And that was on Uncut with Jay Cutler. And Jay Cutler is a former NFL player. She also called ESPN's vaccine mandate sick. She thought it was sick, and she was upset that she had to get the vaccine mandate. Get the vaccine to stay on air. So she has since been pulled off of ESPN, and she's since apologized. Now, I'm not sure what she apologized for, the ridiculous comments about President Barack Obama's background or calling ESPN's vaccine mandate sick. I'm not really sure. But I wanted to add something else. Rachel Lindsay, who is on The Bachelorette, said that she had an interaction with Sage Steele. And Sage Steele walked up to her and said, and she was thrilled. She was overjoyed. Now, I never watched The Bachelorette or The Bachelor or The Rose, whatever. But Sage told Rachel Lindsay she was overjoyed that she didn't choose black on this dating competition series. Listen to Rachel Lindsay explain this on Van Lathan's podcast.
You didn't care. You said, I'm going to pick him, and you didn't feel forced to choose somebody who was black. And I was sitting there like halfway. I liked, this has been 4 years ago. Halfway, I'm like, I like Sage. She's a woman who is of color and who is, had a long career in the media, and I'm aspiring to this. But then I'm listening to you, and the first thing you say to me is how thrilled you are that I didn't choose black. And I'm like, who is this woman? And then since then I've started to learn more about how problematic she can be. So if you don't know who Sage Steele is, just let my story speak for itself. This is a woman who is so obsessed with racial identity, but not just in being proud of what she looks like and who she is, or even being proud of her father who's Black. She's more proud of the fact that her father was in the military than the fact that he was like a Black man in it.
All right, so let me say a couple of things, and I want y'all to tackle this. One, being quote unquote mixed is consistent with the African American experience. Frederick Douglass had a white parent. I mean, I can go on and on throughout history. Bob Marley. I mean, not even just recent folks like, President Barack Obama and Halle Berry. This is consistent with the African American experience. We are a mixed people because of miscegenation. And there are people acting like that. Black folks who have a Black parent and a white parent is something new. Since Black women came over here on the shores of these colonies, there were children who were born because of rape who had a white parent. That is nothing new. I have friends where both their parents are dark-skinned and they come out lighter than me. That is nothing new. But what I do find interesting is there has always been this movement for lighter-skinned Black folks, regardless of their background, regardless if they have two Black parents or not, to try to remove themselves from Blackness, to say, I'm not like you. I'm a quadroon, I'm an octoroon, I'm a mulatto, I am anything but Black, until they get their Blackness checked, until they find out, oh, wait a minute, you're still seen as an N-word like anybody else, right? So there is a bizarre history that someone like Sage Steele is so deeply removed from, she's so deeply disconnected from, that if she really wanted to know the history of folks who had her background, she would know those were folks who were rooted in the Black experience. But here's the other thing, and Laree Favors told me this. Let's be really clear. Talking about census, talking about voting rights and civil rights, biracial is not a protected racial category. It's not protected. So Laree was telling me, so as someone who has gone to court and gone to Congress and spoken before Congress, is that by choosing biracial, that they can't argue in order to defend the Black side of you, the Asian side of you, the white side of you, the Latin side of you. There's no biracial blend that they can defend. So that isn't a protected racial category. And that's part of that. That's the importance of the census. So I think she is so delusional, so offensive. And it's people like her. It's the reason why so many folks have an issue with so-called biracial folks. And listen, I don't have an issue with anybody who calls themselves biracial. For me, that isn't how I grew up, and I'm not white passing and whatever. I don't have it. And I understand why some folks say, hey, I'm going to call myself this because it's important for me to acknowledge who I am. But let me tell you something. My white mother told me, you are going to be seen as a Black man in this country. And I can't have you walking around thinking you're one of them. That would be a disservice to you. That wouldn't be me as a good mom. And you got to be smart enough when you're with the police, when you're in school, when you're at work. And there was a perspective like that really saved me. I don't know how helpful it would have been if my mother would have just said, you're a biracial butterfly, you're everything, because you're not. And there's no choice in your racial identity. Sadly, that is a social choice. There's no choice in it. So I just thought it was really disgusting what she said. Reese, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Well, she got her N-word wake-up call, right? From being suspended.
ESPN. There you go.
Okay.
Right.
So that little white side did not come through in the clutch and protect you from getting suspended. It took them a minute to do it. You know what I'm saying? It took, people coming through, dragging or whatever. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of how they treated Jemele Hill as opposed to how they're treating her. So then they went on ahead and suspended her. I really, because I don't like to call people racial slurs online in public. Now behind closed door, they be every kind of what, but I have a public persona, okay. So I'm not gonna call her that, but I tend to leave the conservatives, the Quislings alone. I don't even dabble in that because they just in the alternate universe. They in the Twilight Zone. I don't have nothing to do with what they talking about. This is the same woman who, you know, she thought that her husband should get kudos for dating her, and now she's paying alimony to her ex-husband.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so people was spilling the tea because I don't follow her like that. You know, I don't pay no attention to her.
Right.
But people were spilling the tea in my comments. I said, "Oh, for real? So how you pick a broke white man that you pay alimony to? Girl, you talking about Barack Obama, President Obama, dad not being there because he died? That's weird. And since when is this now? Don't shoot the messenger. But since when is having an absentee father not a signature move of Black people? Because I know how I grew up, and I love my dad. Everybody love Papa Carl, but he wasn't there for for some time. Okay, and I'm still Black. Okay.
Yes.
And my mom is still Black, and so it's just weird. Like, it's just a weird thing to pick on. To pick on President Obama is weird. To pick on the fact that his dad passed away, which maybe she didn't know that, or the fact that he was raised by his mama, is also weird.
His mother passed away when she was young. His mother passed away when he was young. President
That's
Obama's
true too.
mother.
That's true.
She had cancer. Yeah.
And to pick, first of all, you don't fill out the census, and you bragging about that. So maybe that's why she don't know you can pick multiple races or whatever. So I hope she's in a Republican area if she's not filling out the census. Okay, let them drop off of the congressional rep and their resources. But I just and with Rachel, the whole congratulations on not picking a Black man. That's weird. There's some real self-hatred, deep-rooted issues that we're not going to be able to work out because we're not Ayanna fixing people's lives on here. But sage, you need some sage. Somebody needs to sage your spirit, your mind, your mentality, because it's something off, homegirl. It's something real off with you that you are so anti-Black. And as far as, biracial people go, she still looked more Black than I, if you ask me. You know what I'm saying? She's not Mariah Carey.
Oh yeah,
biracial.
She's not Jennifer Beals.
No, exactly. So, girl, just get a grip. But she's getting her Stacey Dash wake up call. She getting her Diamond and Silk wake up call. That moment was back when Trump was in office. Okay, it's a new administration. It's some new sheriffs in town. People ain't trying to hear none of that shit you talking about, homegirl. So just go ahead, sit down and eat your salad. And as far as the anti-vax stuff, that's on brand with being a Republican. But go ahead and spread that message to the Republican people over there, because the Black community ain't listening to you and taking cues from you on the vaccine.
What do you think, Ted? Especially from a historicized, point of view, this her removing herself and trying to pull this biracial butterfly card, and then shaming somebody else for having the way that they identify President Barack Obama.
Yeah, so on the Obama, I don't even know why she brought that up. It wasn't at all connected to her experience, like presently in terms of the vaccine or even the census. Those were personal choices she was making. And as Reese said, and as you pointed out, she could choose multiple races to identify herself on the census. So the slam against Obama was frankly engineered to draw more attention to this interview or to herself. This was a publicity stunt, I think, or she has an issue with Obama, either the how much he is loved and sort of she resents some of that, but there's something else going on. She brought him up for a purpose that was unrelated to the logic of her argument. But the thing that stands out to me, the most important, most revealing thing she said was, "I'm gonna do me." And this is something that many Black conservatives, this is like the tagline, this is their bumper sticker. "I'ma do me. I'm not gonna be on the plantation with those rest of those Black folks. I'm gonna be a free thinker. I'm not gonna conform to whatever people are supposed to think Black people do or think. I'm gonna do the opposite to show them I'm different." And it's this desire to not be seen as part of Black people that it bothers me, but it's absolutely, it's telling about the way Black conservatives sort of position themselves in our society. So the fact that she sort of doesn't want to expressly identify as Black and instead biracial, the fact that she's trying to give virtual high fives to folks for not choosing a Black husband, but instead choosing a white one, this is all part of this Black conservative mantra of rejecting stereotypes and caricatures that they over exaggerate in their own mind and then go the extra mile to reject it as if that rejection makes them seem like they are above the fray, above this racialized society, and live in a colorblind universe where only their ideas and their persona matter. Look, this is the first time Sage Steele has said or done things like this. She is really, I don't know if obsessed is too strong a word, but she's really adamant on separating herself from any kind of racial categorization, despite the nation she lives in, despite the history of at least her dad's people. And I'm sure if we look at her mother's side and the immigrant story, there's probably some oppression that happened there, despite yeah, exactly. Despite the gender injustices that our nation has perpetrated over the course of its history, she rejects all of that and says we are now in a world where we're free and don't have to conform to these things. The last thing I'll say on this vaccine piece, look, she has 3 kids, and this is what Wikipedia told me. 3 kids. If those kids go to daycare, preschool, elementary, guess what? I looked it up. In the state of Connecticut, like many other states, your kids have to be immunized or vaccinated against chickenpox, measles, pneumonia, polio, all the HEPs, A, B, C, whatever. So the rejection of the COVID vaccine mandate is a political stance, and it's not a social one. And then the minute her employer said, well, you can choose to be this free thinking conservative if you'd like, but you're not going to have a job. She went out and got vaccinated. So this wasn't a principled stance. This was a social sort of positioning in the argument, just like her race arguments are, that she uses to try to set herself above and apart from the rest of society, as if she has something figured out that the rest of us haven't quite gotten to yet.
And can I just add one more thing too on the whole biracial thing? Literally, nobody even cares that much. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's waking up like, I wonder if Sage Steele considers herself black or white or biracial. Like, I mean, there are times where the discussion comes up, but nobody is losing sleep over it. Like, people make a more, like, it's a bigger deal in your head than it is in anybody else's head. If you say, oh, I'm not black, I'm biracial, people gonna be like, oh, okay, girl, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna lose a little bit of cool points, but it's really not that serious. Like, if you sound like you need some counseling over this whole identity thing, nobody cares. So I think it's just a played out, even like argument that people make. Like, there's all these societal pressures to put you in one box or another. Like, look at The Rock. I mean, look at Vin Diesel. Look at all these other people. Like, ain't nobody even tripping that hard on how you consider yourself.
Look at Alicia Keys.
Yeah, a lot of people, like, it's not that serious anymore. I think there was a time where there was a bigger thing. What are you? What do you consider yourself? But I think we've I'm not saying we're post-racial. I'm not saying that. But I think in terms of how people choose to identify themselves, it's nobody that's really like super hardcore trying to push you into a box.